This is our vocabulary from the civil rights, and we're using it as a study guide. So the first one is Reconstruction. Reconstruction was a time after the Civil War when the economy and society of the southern states were rebuilt without slavery.
Okay, so it's not just rebuilding buildings.
So it's not just making buildings again, it's also redoing the economy. So Jim Crow, number 2. Jim Crow was a set of laws that segregated African Americans and made it hard or impossible to vote. African Americans could vote, but they needed to take a really hard test that involved reading and things that most African Americans couldn't afford to be taught.
No, they could do it. They just, the tests were really bad.
It was a literacy test.
And also they had to do, also pay sometimes, which is illegal.
And if they passed it, they had to take another one. It was hard.
Yeah,
They had to take 2. Well, they didn't have to. They failed the first one. They just can't vote. If they passed the first one, they made one better. They basically did it. They did everything they could to do
To make phone calls just to make sure. I'll handle it. And they'll reschedule it. Yeah, you can't pick up this morning, right?
Okay, carpetbagger.
And they'll
Northern
communicate
people that
to
moved to
everybody.
the south to make money off the
Can I take a
people
donut?
there were called carpetbaggers. Okay, so an example of a carpetbagger is, let's say that this guy takes a huge truck and fills it with water and then goes to a place that a huge tornado had just happened and sells water for like $5 a small bottle, and they take advantage.
Right, but how was carpetbagger used in Roll Thunder?
And so the carpetbaggers in the book that we are reading, the carpetbaggers are people that came through to make money off the land and sell the plantations that were once owned, and sell parts of the plantations that were once owned by the slavers. And so then the slavers, since they lost.
Where did Grandpa Logan buy his land?
From Mr. Granger.
You didn't get it from Mr. Granger. Where'd you
A
get it?
carpetbagger.
The carpetbagger bought it from Mr. Granger. Carpetbagger sold it to Mr. Logan.
So it's like
Yes.
the one Okay. Sharecropping. Sharecropping was almost a legal form of slavery because rich landowners got people to work their land without paying them. So basically, if you were sharecropping, you have to give half of your crop that you get to the person that actually owns the land, and you have to give half of the money that you earn from selling that half of your crop to them. So you get 1/4 of your money, and they get 3/4 of it, and money from everyone else.
And Roll of Thunder, why are the Logans are unique in Roll of Thunder, and why is that? Right?
Because they're resilient.
What don't they do?
They don't pay. They own their own land. They don't
They
pay.
don't do this.
They don't sharecrop.
Yes.
I wanted.
They own their own land. That's when we keep talking about what's the land represents. In Roll of Thunder, what's it represent? Pride. Independence.
Courage. 40 acres and a mule. Okay, so this is the saying that. Do you have one?
Well, let's go to the picture. What is it?
Okay, so this is a saying that this guy basically made. So there were a ton of freed slaves following them after the Civil War, and eager to get rid of them, not having following him anymore, he said, okay, here, we'll give you all 40 acres, and we have a lot of donkeys or mules that we have that are tired from the war, and anybody that wants a donkey can have one. So, you can have a.
Every family got 40 acres and a mule, and that's all they wanted.
They weren't greedy. Okay, so then reconstruct.
Let's change this. Okay. So give me a sentence for that, Robbie.
40 acres and a mule is a sentence. Is a quote that originated from the story of a general who had a bunch of freed slaves following him, and he said, "We'll give you 40 acres and a mule, because we have lots of mules from the war, and there's lots of land."
Let's stop it there.
This is the vocabulary from the historic peacemakers. Number 6, caste. Gandhi helped stop the caste
It's not
system.
caste, it's cast.
Caste. Yeah. Gandhi helped stop the caste system in India because it was so unfair to people born poor.
Okay, so explain that.
The people who were born poor, they would be given all the bad things. They would stay poor. They would have the bad jobs.
Like, what was
For
one
the
of
rest
the
of
lowest
their life.
things I told you about?
They would
What
they
is
would
the lowest
collect
caste?
cow manure.
Yeah. And what was the lowest class system called?
The lowest caste system was called the Untouchables. And Gandhi invited them to his home, so he was offering them a better place to live. Apartheid. Nelson Mandela went to prison to 25 years.
Oh.
Shouldn't that be for 25
Thank you.
years? Nelson Mandela went to prison for 25 years for fighting against apartheid in South Africa.
Apartheid is kind of like what?
Segregation. Apartheid is in South Africa. You can't just say that there is apartheid in the United States because apartheid was in South Africa, but they are very like. Boycott. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Gandhi led peaceful protests by boycotting buses and salt.
And what's it mean to boycott something?
You don't use or go to that place for a certain reason.
What kind of boycott did the Logans do?
They made a boycott to go to the Wallace store to not go to the Wallace store because the Wallaces were mean and they treated the blacks unfairly. Mediation. We can use mediation to solve conflicts or arguments between people.
So if there's people arguing, you sit down and try to mediate between them. Mediation happens between like companies and people on strike. And sometimes they got people, Catherine's explained that her mom's a lawyer, and sometimes lawyers are involved in mediation. They make sure that everyone plays fairly and try to find a compromise.
Okay. Prejudice. In India, the British had a prejudice against the Indian people. A prejudice is a fixed thought about, basically a kind of mean opinion about other people. Saying maybe that Indians were filthy people who didn't know how to do
They weren't being
things.
treated fairly.